Welcome. Thanks for joining us in this recording with Tamara Madden of Mad on Nutrition. Who'll take us through a few of the key. Thank you for joining, Tamara. Hi, nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll go through a few little bits and pieces for event day nutrition and lead up to, perhaps even touch on a little bit of recovery, what might help there.
Oh, great. Yes. Awesome. All right, thank you for having me along. So yeah, up to talking about your 5K swim that's coming up. Certainly still a little bit of time to do some practice for your nutrition. Probably the key things with a 5K in the water is the preparation in the 2 or 3 days in the lead up to the swim. It's really important that you turn up on that start line fully hydrated. And hydration takes a good 2 days to really make sure that you've got as much water on board in every cell. So I'd encourage you to drink a little bit of extra water than you normally would on the 2 days prior to the swim, and combine that in your drink bottle, popping in an electrolyte supplement. So that's something like a hydrolyte that you can buy from the supermarket or the pharmacy, or some of you might have another sports brand. So your common ones are kind of High Five and Fizz, and there's lots of different brands. I think most people know what an electrolyte tablet is. It's just one of those fizzy things that you can put in your water bottle. So 1 or 2 of those each day for the 2 days prior is a really good idea, because what the electrolytes do is make sure that you actually absorb the water into the cells. So we need that extra electrolyte and sodium to make that happen. So that would be my advice in the lead up to the swim. The other thing you can do is just make sure that your cells and your liver are full of glycogen. Glycogen is what's going to fuel you during the swim, along with your fat stores. But we want to make sure that you've got as much glycogen on board as possible. So the way that you do that is by eating carbohydrates primarily. And you don't need to kind of carb load on the old, stuff yourself silly with carbohydrates, but it is a good idea. Those days are over, unfortunately, maybe for elite athletes, but for us, weekend warriors, it doesn't really work. But what does work is just dropping down the protein and fat component of your meal and increasing carbohydrates. So the overall meal size is the same as the total number of calories would be the same, but you're actually prioritizing carbohydrates over, say, meat or fish or fat. So for example, good carbohydrates prior to a race, so this would be the day before, I would be having things like fruit, rice, pasta, bread, potatoes is my favorite. Stick to white potatoes rather than sweet potato, because the other thing that you want to try and do on that day before the race is have low fiber carbohydrates. Very different to what we have generally in nutrition, where you're often nutritionists were promoting you to have a lot of fiber in your diet. But for race day, what we're trying to do is actually absorb as much carbohydrate as you can into your cells. So the way you do that is by reducing the fiber just for that day before. So white carbs are better for that day before. And like I said, you don't need to kind of overeat. It's just prioritizing the carbs over the other macros being protein and fat. So that would be my advice for the day before. And then the morning of the event, it's a good idea if you can hop up, if it's not too early a start time, and have a little top up of carbohydrates. So depending on what sits well in your tummy. And this is what I'm saying, we've got a couple of weeks, so you could try this for the next couple of weeks and just see what works for you. And you do want to stick to carbohydrates again, so not too much protein or fat. So my personal favorite is a white sourdough with Vegemite or with honey. Some people like bananas, Wheat Bix is popular. The other thing you can do is if you really kind of struggle to eat before a swim because you don't want too much in your stomach, then you could use something like a sports drink in that situation that's got carbohydrates in it and some electrolytes often as well. So that would be a good choice, particularly if you're someone who likes to sleep as much as you can and then kind of, really be kind of rushing to the start line. You don't have time to eat. That's fine. A sports drink would work well there, or maybe just a banana if you can have that as well. The other thing that's popular, which most of you would be familiar with, I'm sure by now, are gels. So a gel is like a sports product. I've got one here just to show you. You could have something like that just before the start line. I'm not being brand specific here. It's just what I've got on hand. So something like that. You need to have gels with water. So if you want to have a gel just before you start, you could have it maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but make sure you have some water with it as well to get it to digest properly. So you'll find a lot of people on the start line of a 5K will have something like that before they start. The other thing to consider, some of you, if you're more of a slower swimmer and you're going to be out there for a while, some people will carry a gel with them on the swim and just kind of tuck it in. Girls can tuck it into the top of their swimmers. Boys, I'm not sure. I suppose you pop it in your pants somewhere.
Not many options.
Not many options, no. But you will see people carrying a gel on the swim. It can be quite helpful for those who are going to be out there kind of past the 2-hour mark. You might need a bit of a top up with the glycogen. What you're doing is just topping up that glycogen to enable your body to burn your fat to keep you going. So the terminology we use is hitting the wall or bonking. You don't want to do that. That's when your body completely runs out of glycogen. Most of you will probably be okay within that 5K range, but if you're kind of wondering, what other people are doing, or maybe you're worried about running out of energy, then a gel would be appropriate to carry. Yeah. Oh, any other questions, do you think, Robin, that we need to cover off?
You've covered quite a bit of it there. I think, the basic understanding of hydration isn't just having a glass of water before you start the race. It's, preparing days in advance, as well as supplementing that with our electrolytes to keep things on the move. Carb loading isn't a bucket of pasta. It's, fruits and vegetables, but not high fiber leading up to it as well.
Yeah, one of my key tips there that a lot of people, they're kind of, what's the difference with fiber or low fiber? For example, I wouldn't have kind of brown rice with legumes and lots of veggies. It's a really healthy meal other times, but not before race day. Yeah. Go the white rice, go the white potato. So yeah, it's just that slight difference. It's that will be of benefit for people the day before. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And event day breakfast, you covered that as well. Keeping it fairly simple and light, not having big meals, and timing however we can. Obviously, there's 7:30 a.m. start, so that's something to consider.
Yeah. The other thing for race day, don't do anything new on race day morning. So make sure whatever you're going to have on race day, you've practiced at least 1 or 2 times. Don't kind of get thrown on race day if maybe you're not staying at home, you're staying at friends or whatever, to kind of get caught up in what their routine is. And they go, oh, I always have a hot cross bun, or I always have a muffin or McDonald's or whatever. Don't kind of get caught up in someone else's plan. You need to know what works for you. So the golden rule is never try anything new on race day.
Yeah, you want to know how you're going to react as well. So there's no surprises really, don't you?
Correct. Yeah.
Whether that's your energy systems or digestion, you don't want any surprises there mid race. Yeah. You did talk, speaking of mid race, about the potential of maybe carrying a gel if that's what you wanted to as well. So during the event, do you have any tips for what our swimmers might consider for post-event recovery, nutrition and hydration?
Yeah, good question. So the primary thing when you hop out of the water is to get some carbohydrates in. So they will have things on the finish line that will probably be things like fruit, which is a really good choice. They often have bananas and watermelon. They'll have some kind of sports drinks perhaps. So carbohydrates is your priority in the first half an hour after finishing, because you've completely, 5K swim, you will have depleted all of your glycogen that you have on board. So that's the primary goal, get some carbs in straight away with hydration as well. So topping up. That's why, again, a sports drink would actually be probably the best choice. A lot of people after a swim don't really feel like eating much either. You might have swallowed a bit of seawater. So if you can have a drink and a piece of fruit straight away, and then try and eat a proper meal that would have some protein in it within the next 2 hours if you can. So and then you can have things like fiber in there. So being a morning session, you might go out for breakfast and have eggs on toast with some veggies or pancakes or waffles, or maybe a fruit smoothie that's got some protein powder in it. So the kind of guideline is that you carbs first, and then a proper meal within 2 hours that would contain some protein as well would be ideal.
Sounds like a good post-race celebration to me. That works.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the other thing that people sometimes forget with swimming is because you're in the water, you don't realize how much you're sweating.
Yeah.
So hydration is super important after a big swim, and also with your training sessions as well. You don't notice it as much as you do with land sports, but you actually still sweat quite a lot when you swim. So making sure that you hydrate. The guideline is you have to hydrate 150% of what you've lost. So it's actually drinking quite a significant amount of water in the next kind of 3 or 4 hours post-race. And I'd pop an electrolyte in there as well if you can, and make sure you top up on that hydration post-race. So that would be the primary things, yeah.
Any sort of idea of quantity of water? I suppose it's going to vary from one person to the next with body volume and that sort of thing.
Most people, the kind of the average, people sweat anywhere from half a litre up to about 800 mils per hour. So if you're in the water for an hour and a half, you're probably losing, I don't know, between maybe a litre and a litre and a half of sweat. So then to hydrate that 1.5 times or 150%, you need to be drinking 2 litres.
Yeah, sure.
Not all in one go. It's much better to sip it over time, but in that next kind of 2 hours, to have a water bottle with you the whole time so that you're hydrating, getting that water back in to your body. Otherwise, you'll end up with a headache and probably feeling quite fatigued as well. So yeah, hydration is important. Probably the last thing I've just thought, Robin, that a lot of people ask me about with nutrition is what about caffeine, and is it helpful? The answer is it depends. I know that's not a very good answer, but it actually does depend on how you metabolize caffeine. So the research has shown that caffeine can aid sports performance, but the mechanism is because it dulls the perception of pain. So in your brain, it doesn't feel as hard. So if you're someone who's used to having, coffee or some kind of caffeinated beverage every day, then caffeine in the morning before the race could be a benefit for you if it's something that you're used to, and it may help you with your performance. A lot of people like to have caffeine in the morning to help them go to the bathroom before an event. If that's you, I think that's a great idea to keep that routine as well. The only thing I would say, if you're not used to doing it, with open water swims, one of the things that people struggle with a lot is a high heart rate when they get into the water. So if you're someone who has a high heart rate, then caffeine may exacerbate that if you're not used to it. So just being mindful of the impact that caffeine has on your heart rate. And again, you've got to practice that. So that's something to try in training.
Yeah, for sure. I know from experience that can hit quite hard. I'm not a coffee drinker, so caffeine's not something that's a part of my regular intake. So I did have one during a training session once, and it did inspire me to go faster, if you know what I mean. But yeah, definitely one for those to look out. That's fantastic. We've covered, I think, more or less the whole week of leading up to and the event. So
good luck, everybody. I hope you have a great swim, and I hope it's nice. I hope the weather is kind. So
for sure, we hope so as well. Now, Tamara, if anyone has any specific questions, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can send me an email. I've got a website, so my business is called Mad on Nutrition, and my email's tamara@madonnutrition.com.au, or you can do a Google search and I'll come up and send me an email that way. I'm very happy to help if anyone's got any questions at all.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. I'll put those details in the bits below in the comments.
Awesome. Okay.
Perfect.
Great. Nice to see you. Good luck.